Present moment experience of coffee, always good. So the present moment and compassion and kindness, it's very linked together for me. So we can engage in our present moment in a compassionate and kind way. And if you go back to some of the videos on short self-compassion practice, this is the stage where we engage with a compassionate behavior and bring our attention into the moment. And we can use compassionate self-talk to support us. So I really like the work of Barbara Fredrickson. So she's a positive psychology researcher who's done a lot of brilliant work on compassion and the benefits of compassion. And she has a practice called narrating your day in an accepting and kind way, or narrating your day with acceptance and kindness. And this is really this concept that we all have some degree of internal self-talk. So there are some people this is stronger in than others, and for other people it's less clear or it's more in the background. So you'll find yourself somewhere on that spectrum, and certainly it'll show up at times, even if you're fairly, you feel like your mind is fairly calm. There'll be some degree of self-talk, and often it can be very self-critical. And even when you don't have a clear inner critic, which is the case for me, often I don't hear my inner critic like a voice. It's more of a felt sense, so more of a felt sense of shame or embarrassment or low mood or something like that it'll show up as. And then if I ask what that means, I can get to the critic that way. And so what Barbara Fredrickson is trying to get to here is that we can also bring in this parallel, kind, supportive voice. And this can really help with the present moment. So it's like this nurturing, supportive inner coach that keeps you engaged, on task, doing the best you can, and then supports you when we have difficulties or so-called failures. And call them so-called failures because how do we learn in life? You know, we see babies falling over hundreds of times a day to learn to walk, and they're not beating themselves up every time and going, I can never learn to walk because I fell over here. And yet somehow as we get older we lose this. So this self-compassion can counteract that a little bit. So as we're engaging in the present moment, we just bring in some self-talk that goes, okay, what do I need to do next? This is really tricky right now. I'm dealing with some difficult thoughts and feelings or relationships or life circumstances. What can I do next? What's the task that will support me? How can I do that? Okay, you're doing the best you can here. This is difficult, but you're staying focused, and this will pass, this will shift and change. So it can be accepting, validating, motivating, instructional, this kind, friendly inner voice. And if we practice it, it becomes more natural and it will be there, and it can really help to keep us in the present moment. So I would often link these together. I would say they are principles that can work together, especially if we're struggling with our mental health. It's very unlikely we're being kind to ourselves in our head if we've got mental health challenges. So the more we can cultivate this, of course, at first there'll be resistance. Our brain doesn't want this. It thinks it's protecting us and helping us, so it'll resist. It'll doubt, it'll judge, it'll do criticism, it'll do everything it can to say, stop being kind to yourself. But if we persist through that and gently add it in little by little, it'll become natural so that we can support ourselves in a kind way. And when we drop the plate, instead of going, you're a terrible person and you've ruined your whole day and blah, 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 or an external critic that goes, oh, everyone's letting me down and blah, 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 blah. Instead of that, we can go, okay, I dropped the plate. What do I need to do to tidy this up? Where do I want to go today? What do I want to do? I'm not going to let this stress bleed into the rest of my day and affect everything else. The present moment that continues from that is not going to be infected by the pain of that moment. And it's a practice, and we use all the unhooking, all the cognitive diffusion and acceptance skills to support that. And the other part of the kindness in the present moment is this kind attention. So what do we need? Where do we need to focus? If we are experiencing overwhelming emotions, we might need an anchor, a grounding focus, something to support us if the emotion is just too overwhelming and too distracting and it's pulling us out of the moment. So can we connect with our environment? Can we notice 5 things we can see, 5 things we can hear? And then the sensation of touch and connection with the floor or where we're sitting. You know, can we use the senses to ground us, not to get rid of the difficult thoughts and feelings, but to give us an anchor and a system to help us feel grounded and more stable so we can accept and move through these difficult states. For some people it's the breath, so we can use the breath as an anchor to connect with the present moment. We can allow the breath to come in and out in a relaxed, effortless way, or we can even slightly deepen the breath if that's helpful for us. And we can use that to bring us back into the present moment, so as a tool to help us connect. But it won't work for everyone. A lot of people struggle with the breath, and it can be so linked with our stress response, and there's some research that shows people with a trauma history are going to struggle with using the breath as an anchor for attention. So we might want to use external sights and sounds and sensations, or an internal self-talk, or some sort of supportive phrase, something like that. Or movement. You know, often movement can be the best thing if we're really in that state of hyperarousal in our nervous system and we're feeling overwhelmed. Or indeed, if we are in that hypoarousal and we're shut down and deactivated, movement can be so good in both those places. So to have some little movements you can do throughout the day that are subtle, that no one can see, you know, can you press your feet in the ground? Can you tense the muscles in your legs and release them? Can you massage your palms? Can you just roll your shoulders a little bit? You know, what movement can we use? So these are all examples of kind, supportive attention in the present moment. We can also use activities, so we can have a list of activities that are supportive, value-based, things we care about, ranging from anything from, you know, computer games, arts and crafts, jigsaw puzzles or other puzzles that engage our brains, movement, physical exercise. You know, we can fit movement in throughout our day, just climbing some stairs or doing something like that, running on the spot, or just having a glass of water or a cup of tea or something like this. So we can use all kinds of little activities as a compassionate present moment attention that could support us if we're really struggling. And I think if we're dealing with extreme emotional dysregulation, so very overwhelming emotions that are very difficult to contain and to accept, then to have some activities to help us in that acceptance so that we can put our focus onto those in the moment and allow the feelings to be in the background, but we're not tangling up with the feelings too much. We're at first using these grounding and anchoring attentional focuses to help there, and the self-compassionate self-talk that we talked about, that can really support that. So the present moment combined with compassion, self-kindness, self-acceptance can be so useful. And of course, you know, this links to the video before. Relationships can be that thing, so connecting with someone who can support you and can help you to engage in your life, in your moment, and this can be nature or pets or things like that as well. Anything like that can be supportive. So I think to have a clear plan, if you're really struggling with difficult emotional dysregulation, what tools and activities and things can you focus on that will help you to gradually build your ability to move with these difficult emotions and to not let them pull you out of the present moment into the past or catastrophizing and worrying about the future.